I was messing around on our shared laptop when a little email notification pinged in the corner of the screen. The subject read, "Husband Boot Camp, registration confirmed." At first, I figured it was just another junk email trying to sell me something. But when I clicked it open, there was my name, my personal details, and a receipt showing $1,499 had been yanked from our joint account. My wife, without so much as a heads up, had enrolled me in a 12-week course meant to turn lousy husbands into perfect soulmates. My heart started pounding as I skimmed the program's syllabus. Week 1 was all about spotting your own toxic habits. Week 2 focused on actually hearing your wife without getting defensive. By the time week 12 rolled around, I'd supposedly be a shiny new husband, fully equipped to cater to my wife's every emotional whim. Each line I read felt like another jab at my self-respect. I wanted to slam the laptop shut, but I took a deep breath and kept my cool instead. This wasn't the time to lose it, I needed a game plan. I poked around their website and found glowing reviews from guys who'd been fixed, all sporting the same hollow look in their eyes, posing next to wives who seemed way too pleased with themselves. The whole thing was run by some lady who called herself the husband whisperer, like she was taming wild stallions. My gut screamed to march upstairs and have it out with my wife, but a little voice in my head said to hold off and dig deeper. I checked her browser history and found chats with her buddies, griping about how I needed an overhaul, too focused on work, clueless about her needs, and how she and her friends had formed a club to upgrade their husbands with this program. I snapped the laptop closed and poured myself a stiff whiskey. The real sting wasn't just the boot camp itself. It was her broadcasting to her whole social circle that I was some kind of broken machine, casually blowing our money to fix me without even a quick chat, and acting like she had the green light to rewire who I am. At dinner that night, she was all smiles, rambling about her day like nothing was up. I played my part, nodding along, tossing in a grin while she talked about weekend plans, pretending I hadn't stumbled onto her secret mission. When she dropped a hint about keeping next Saturday morning free for something important, I just gave a cheerful nod. "Whatever you say, babe," I said, clinking my glass with a smile that didn't quite make it to my eyes. After she hit the sack, I stayed up late, not fuming, but laser-focused. I made 3 calls, one to my lawyer, one to my financial guy, and one to my best buddy. By the time the sun came up, I had a plan sketched out. She wanted me in this husband boot camp. Fine, I'd show up, but not to become her dream guy. I'd be taking notes, not on how to improve myself, but on exactly what she and her pals thought was wrong with guys like me. While I was learning their gripes, I'd be quietly putting together my own program, Single Life Forever Academy. Lesson 1 was already underway, nobody gets to tell you what you're worth. The next morning, I gave her a quick kiss goodbye as she headed to work, acting like everything was normal. She had no clue her little boot camp had just kicked off a timer, not for my makeover, but for her lesson in what happens when you play games like this. Saturday morning came, and I strolled into the hotel conference room where the boot camp was happening, keeping my face blank as a poker player's. 15 other guys were slumped in a circle of stiff chairs. Most looked like they'd rather be fishing or fixing a car, anywhere but here. A couple seemed beaten down, and 1 or 2 were weirdly eager, like they'd spent their lives saying sorry for breathing. Then the instructor strutted in, a tall woman with a posture that screamed she was in charge. She introduced herself as Dr. Avery, an expert in recalibrating men's behavior. Dr. Avery strutted in wearing a sharp power suit, talking down to us like we were a bunch of kids who'd forgotten their homework. The room was plastered with posters shouting slogans like, "She's not asking too much, you're just dodging personal growth," and "Your need to argue is the real issue." "Gentlemen, you're sitting here because your marriages are on shaky ground," she kicked off, her eyes sweeping the circle. "Your wives care enough to sink money into making you better men." A couple of guys gave weak nods, like they were already half broken. I stayed stone still, taking mental notes on every detail. The first task was to jot down 3 things our wives griped about the most. The other guys were scribbling like their lives depended on it, stuff like not pitching in with chores, being emotionally checked out, or spending too much time at work. Me? I didn't write a single word, just soaked in their admissions like a sponge. "Hey, guy in the blue shirt," Dr. Avery called out, zeroing in on me. "What's on your paper?" "I'm still thinking it over," I said, cool as a cucumber. "I like to get things right." She looked thrown off by my steady vibe but let it slide and moved on. During the break, I spotted a guy I recognized, married to one of my wife's friends. He shuffled over, his face screaming we're in the same mess. "This is my third week," he muttered under his breath. "My wife thinks I'm coming around, but I just feed her the lines she wants. Keeps the peace, you know." I gave him a nod, acting like I felt his pain, but kept my cards close. Instead, I peppered him with questions, fishing for details on which of my wife's buddies had roped their husbands into this. Turns out, 4 couples from our circle were in on it, with a group chat where they swapped updates on their husbands' progress. After lunch, they had us act out scenes where we supposedly let our wives down. One poor guy fumbled through a skit, trying to validate his wife's feelings without suggesting fixes. Dr. Avery kept cutting him off. "Nope, you're still trying to solve it. Just hear her out and affirm." When my turn came, I nailed it, not because I bought into their nonsense, but because I wanted to crack their code. I mimicked exactly what they expected, earning a round of approving head bobs from Dr. Avery. "That's a solid response pattern," she said, sounding impressed. "Your wife's going to love this." The last part of the day was about weekly homework, keeping a gratitude journal about our wives and practicing canned responses for touchy situations. They handed us binders stuffed with worksheets and a progress chart for our wives to fill out weekly, like we were lab rats. As we filed out, Dr. Avery passed out week 1 completion certificates, like we were kids getting stickers for good behavior. I took mine with a firm grip and locked eyes with her just long enough to make her flinch. Driving home, I wasn't mad anymore, I was crystal clear. This wasn't about fixing marriages, it was about training men to ditch their self-worth and roll over. That night, I didn't breathe a word about the boot camp. When my wife tossed out a casual, "So, how was your morning?" I just said I'd run into some fascinating folks and left it there. The flicker of surprise on her face told me she'd braced for me to either spill about the program or lie about my whereabouts. My vague reply threw her off, which was exactly my goal. After dinner, I made 3 more calls, one to a real estate agent, one to a private investigator to dig into the boot camp's shady setup, and one to a buddy with a cabin by the lake. Phase 2 of my strategy was coming together. While she thought I was being tamed, I was plotting my way out. For 2 weeks, I showed up to every boot camp session, sitting through 3 hours of brainwashing meant to turn men into spineless yes-men. But at home, I was running my own program, what I called Single Life Forever Academy, and I was the only student who mattered. First up, I got my finances in order. I set up a new bank account and had my next paycheck sent straight to it, cutting off the pipeline to our joint funds. I sat down with my lawyer to figure out the smartest way to shield my assets, not because I'm some greedy jerk, but because nobody who'd blow our cash to fix me without a word should have free reign over what I've earned. Then I turned my focus to taking back my life. I dusted off my gym membership and started hitting up old buddies my wife had slowly nudged out of the picture over the years. When she gave me a side eye about my Thursday night basketball games, I hit her with the exact, active listening, trick they taught at boot camp. "I get that you're worried my hoops night is cutting into our time together, and that's a fair feeling," I said, all calm and collected. Then I grabbed my sneakers and went anyway. The look on her face was pure confusion. She was getting reports that I was supposed to be turning into a docile lapdog, not doubling down on doing my own thing. But there I was, using their fancy communication skills while completely ignoring what they wanted from me. At boot camp, I kept up the perfect student act. I shared fake epiphanies about my so-called toxic habits, earning big approving nods from Dr. Avery. The other guys started seeing me as the star pupil, clueless that I was cataloging every slimy tactic and humiliating exercise, not just to plan my getaway, but for something way bigger. Week 3 session was all about tearing down male pride. They had us write about times our egos supposedly wrecked our relationships. While other guys scribbled about dumb stuff like refusing to ask for directions or trying to fix a leaky faucet solo, I wrote about letting someone else call the shots on my personal growth without my okay. Dr. Avery read my response to the group, totally missing the jab I was throwing. "This shows real self-awareness," she bragged to everyone. "He's seeing how resisting guidance hurts closeness." That night, my wife got her weekly update on my progress. She came at me with this weird mix of smugness and doubt on her face. "Your instructor says you're killing it," she said, eyeing me like she was waiting for me to crack. "I'm picking up a ton about relationships," I shot back, holding her gaze until she blinked first, stuff like respect, clear communication, and setting boundaries. She seemed happy enough, completely blind to the fact that I wasn't talking about their lessons. The next day, I checked out 3 apartments behind her back. I picked one that fit my budget in a neighborhood I'd always been into and slapped down a deposit. The lease would kick in next month, right on schedule for the final stretch of my plan. I also linked up with a PR guy who specialized in managing reputations. If my wife and her crew thought they could mess with people's lives like this, they were about to learn that some moves come with a price they didn't see coming. At home, I started quietly pulling my most important stuff out of the house. Key documents got tucked into a safe deposit box. Family keepsakes ended up in storage at my office. Nothing loud enough to set off her radar, just the groundwork I needed. By week 4 of boot camp, the other husbands were treating me like one of the guys, totally won over. During the breaks at boot camp, the other guys opened up about their gripes, spilling how betrayed they felt being dragged into this program without a say. I listened to them with more heart than I ever showed in the actual sessions. One guy nearly lost it, confessing how his confidence had tanked since the program started. "I don't even know who I am anymore," he said, voice shaky. "I'm just saying sorry for being me." I clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Maybe you're not the one who needs fixing," I told him under my breath. A spark flickered in his eyes, like a piece of his pride that had been buried was starting to dig its way out. That moment locked in what I'd already figured out: I wasn't just plotting my escape from a controlling marriage. I was building a playbook for guys who'd been told their manhood was a problem to be scrubbed out instead of valued. Single Life Forever Academy was growing bigger than just getting even, it was turning into a mission to take back what was ours. By week 5, the shifts in how I carried myself were too obvious to miss. I walked a tightrope, showing just enough progress to keep my wife thinking the boot camp was working, while carving out my independence in ways that had her second-guessing everything. She first clocked it when I quit asking her approval for little stuff. I didn't make a big speech about it, I just stopped running my plans by her. When she brought up a Friday dinner with her friends, I casually said, "Can't make it. Got some other stuff going on." Her jaw practically hit the floor. "What stuff?" "You didn't mention anything," she pressed. "Just some personal things I'm sorting out," I replied with a laid-back smile, using the exact boundary-setting tone Dr. Avery drilled into us, except I was flipping their script to dodge their control. The next weekend was the big one I'd been gearing up for, a dinner party with all the couples wrapped up in this boot camp scam. My wife was pumped, ready to parade her upgraded husband next to her friends' reprogrammed guys. I showed up to the restaurant looking sharp in a new suit I'd picked out just for this. The other husbands were in jeans and polos, already fading into the background like they'd been trained to. They did a double take when they saw me, all polished and standing tall. Over dinner, I watched the whole scene play out. The wives ran the show, tossing their husbands little glances that screamed, "Don't forget your lessons." The guys answered with practiced, "Yes, dear" vibes and over-the-top humility. When the spotlight swung to me, my wife beamed and said, "The boot camp's been a game-changer for us. He's practically a new man." I lifted my glass with a grin. "Here's to growing as people and stumbling on some surprising truths," I said, locking eyes with each husband around the table. Something clicked between us, a quiet understanding that flew right over their wives' heads. During the main course, one wife started griping about her husband forgetting to book a car service appointment. The guy launched into his canned apology routine, but I cut in. "Hold up, I think you did a solid job there," I said straight to him. "You were juggling a lot and made a smart call." Then I looked at his wife. This boot camp's really opened our eyes to trusting each other's choices, right? The table went dead quiet. The wife shot a glance at my wife, who looked just as thrown by me stepping in. This wasn't the meek, nod-along act they were banking on. After dinner, while the wives huddled up to swap notes, I made my rounds to each husband, quietly handing them my business card. On the back, I'd scribbled a short note, "There's a better path. Give me a call if you want to talk," I'd written on those cards. On the ride home, my wife was quieter than usual, like she was chewing on something. Finally, she broke the silence. "Dr. Avery's been raving about how great you're doing with communication, but tonight you didn't seem like the guy she's describing," she said. "How so?" I asked, eyes fixed on the highway. "More pushy. The other guys are all about going along with their wives now. You were calling them out." I cracked a small grin. "Isn't real communication just about laying your thoughts out straight? That's what they're teaching me." She didn't have a comeback for that, her own program's words turned against her like a boomerang. The next morning, my phone started lighting up with texts from the other husbands. One by one, they hit me up, curious about what I meant by a better path. I set up a meet at a tucked-away room in a local bar, far from the prying eyes of their wives. As I was heading out that night, my wife piped up, "Where you off to?" "Men's support group," I said, keeping it honest but vague. "Is that part of the boot camp?" she asked, squinting like she was trying to remember if this was on the schedule. "Nah, it's something I'm doing on my own," I replied. "Taking charge of my own growth, you know." I threw her program's lingo right back at her, and though her face screamed suspicion, she couldn't argue without sounding hypocritical. At the bar, 5 of the guys showed up, looking beat down, shoulders slumped, eyes glued to the floor, like they'd been convinced everything about them was wrong. For 2 hours, I laid out how the boot camp was messing with their heads, breaking them down with sneaky psychological tricks. I shared how I'd been flipping their tactics to take back my life instead of handing it over. By the time they walked out, they were standing a little taller, like they'd remembered who they were. We planned to meet again, kicking off the first real session of my underground program, not about bossing around their wives, but about getting their self-worth back. When I got home, my wife was still up, trying to play it cool. "How'd your support group go?" she asked, her tone a little too light. "Life-changing," I said, straight up. "I think we're all starting to see things in a whole new light." By week 8, the endgame was in sight. I was living in 2 worlds, playing the model husband at boot camp while building my freedom at home. My secret meetups with the other husbands had blown up, from 5 guys to 12, each one bringing another fed-up husband ready to take back his pride. At the same time, I'd locked in my escape plan. The apartment was set up with furniture, my important stuff was safely stashed, and my money was untouchable. All that was left was the big showdown I'd been piecing together for almost 2 months. I picked a Sunday night when we were both home, no distractions. She was flipping through my latest boot camp progress report, looking pleased as punch. The report gave me glowing scores for following guidance and being open to correction. "Dr. Avery says you've made huge strides," she said, grinning like she was handing me a gold medal. "She thinks you're ready for the advanced stuff." I sat down across from her, looking her dead in the eye. "Before we get into that, I've got something I want you to see," I said, sliding a folder across the table. She opened it, probably expecting something tame like a budget spreadsheet or vacation plans, something nice and husbandly. Instead, she was staring at divorce papers I'd already signed, alongside printed screenshots of her chats with her friends about the boot camp and bank records showing I'd cut off my finances. Her face went from puzzled to stunned to furious in a heartbeat. "What the hell is this?" You pulling some kind of prank? She snapped. Not even close, I said, cool as ice. Think of it as my final assignment. I don't get it, she fumbled, rifling through the papers. The boot camp was fixing things. Dr. Avery said you were doing great. Oh, I was learning plenty, I nodded, just not the stuff you had in mind. Her eyes sharpened as it hit her. You've been faking it this whole time, she hissed. I'd call it studying, I shot back. While you signed me up for husband boot camp behind my back, I enrolled in my own course, one about spotting control tactics, setting my own lines, and mapping out a way out of a marriage that's got no respect. She tried to flip it, her voice hot with anger. This is exactly why you needed the program. You're being stubborn and pig-headed instead of trying to save what we have. I didn't flinch, keeping my tone steady. Let's get one thing straight, the second you decided to fix me without asking, you killed our marriage. You just didn't see it coming. Her eyes started to glisten, and she switched gears, voice softening. I only did it because I care about you. I wanted us to be stronger. Nope, I cut in. You wanted me to be someone else. That's a whole different thing. Her voice climbed, a desperate edge creeping in. We can figure this out. I'll ditch the boot camp. We can try real therapy instead. That might have worked 2 months back if you'd come to me like a partner, not like I was some broken appliance you needed to tinker with. She snatched her phone. I'm calling my sister. You're not thinking straight. I've never been clearer, I said, standing up. And by the way, I already talked to your sister. She was pretty shocked to hear about the boot camp. Funny, you told her we were in couples counseling that I wanted. Her face went white as a sheet, her web of lies was crumbling fast. You've got 2 options, I went on. We can do this divorce clean and quiet, and you keep your head held high. Or you can drag it out, and I'll have to lay it all bare, your family, your friends, everyone will know how you and your crew have been pulling strings on your husbands. I've got receipts, statements from the other guys, and session recordings. You recorded the sessions, she gasped. That's against the law. Actually, it's not, I said. I ran it by my lawyer. This state only needs one party's consent, and I've got plenty of husbands who signed off. She gaped at the divorce papers, the truth finally sinking in. What about everything we built? Our future? That all went out the window the moment you decided I needed an overhaul instead of respect, I said, grabbing my keys and wallet. I'm already moved out. You can talk to my lawyer if you need me. As I walked toward the door, she made one last plea. Please, we can make this right. I screwed up. I paused and looked back. That's the first real thing you've said in forever. But some screw-ups change the game for good. With that, I stepped out, not feeling pumped or pissed, just a calm kind of pride for holding my ground. Later that night, as I got settled in my new apartment, my phone started buzzing with texts from the other husbands. Word of my showdown had gotten around, the other husbands were blowing up my phone, hungry for details, advice, and a shot of bravery. Some were ready to walk my road, others just needed to hear that breaking free was even an option. I fired back the same message to all of them, welcome to Single Life Forever Academy. Lesson 1, your self-worth isn't up for debate. 2 days after I left, my soon-to-be ex-wife came out swinging, right on cue. She started with a flood of texts, bouncing between fury and sobbing apologies. When I didn't bite, she rallied her troops, her friends, her family, even folks we both knew, feeding them a polished story she'd spun. In her version, I'd lost my mind, gone off the deep end. The boot camp? Just her sweet attempt to save our marriage from my unstable behavior. My walking out was betrayal, and my financial moves were cold-hearted scheming. I stayed quiet, letting her burn through her playbook. My lawyer handled the legal jabs that came next. Her attorney insisted I come back home to work things out, and hinted I'd get hit hard in the wallet for bailing. I sent one reply, a full breakdown of the husband boot camp's program, its exercises meant to crush men's confidence, the sneaky mind games, and statements from other guys who'd been through it. The threats vanished by morning. 10 days after I'd split, she asked to meet somewhere neutral. I said sure, picking a cafe private enough for a real talk but public enough to keep any meltdowns in check. I got there 15 minutes early, grabbing a corner table with a good view of the door. She rolled in 5 minutes late, dressed to the nines, like looking perfect could patch up her crumbling control. I stood up for a second as she walked over, polite, not bowing. "Thanks for coming," she started, her voice dialed in to sound calm and reasonable. "We need to talk this through like grown-ups." "Couldn't agree more," I said, sliding a folder across the table. "That's why I brought these." It was copies of her texts with her friends, chatting about us like we were show ponies they were training. She barely glanced at them before shoving the folder aside. "You're twisting those. We were just trying to support each other to make our marriages better. By tearing down your husband's independence and self-respect. That's a hell of a way to improve a relationship." She leaned in, switching gears. "Okay, I'll own it, the boot camp was a bad call. I should have talked to you first. But torching 7 years over one mistake. That's a bit much, don't you think?" "It wasn't just one mistake," I set her straight. "It was the end of a long road. The boot camp only showed me what you really think of me, a project to be fixed, not a partner to respect." Her cool mask slipped for a second. "So that's it? You're just walking away? I spent 7 years trying to be what you needed. And when that didn't cut it, you tried to get me rewired by pros without my say-so." "Yeah, I'm done." She tried a new angle. "What about all the good stuff? The dreams we had? You're ready to just ditch all that?" "I'm not ditching anything," I said. "I'm holding on to what's left of my pride." "Big difference." Her eyes tightened. "And your little club with the other husbands? Stirring them up against their wives?" I gave a small grin. "I didn't stir up a thing. I just gave them the respect you and your friends held back, the chance to decide their own paths. And yeah, some of them are talking about walking out too." "You've caused a total mess," she said, her voice sharp. "Nope," I replied, "I just gave them the facts and a bit of backup. They're choosing what to do based on how they've been treated, some are walking out, others are hashing out fairer deals in their marriages. It's their call." She made one last play, reaching across the table for my hand. "I miss you. Can't we at least give real counseling a shot this time?" I pulled my hand back. "I've spent the last 2 months picking our relationship apart from every angle. The issue wasn't talking or getting along, it was a basic lack of respect that no therapy session can bring back." Her calm front finally broke. "So what's next? You just bail and start some kind of anti-marriage club?" "Next, we wrap up this divorce as quick and clean as we can," I said. "And what I'm building isn't against marriage, it's for self-respect. Some guys will take what they learn and ditch controlling relationships. Others will use it to turn shaky marriages into ones built on mutual respect. The bottom line is, men deserve better than being treated like fixer-upper projects." I dropped my card on the bill and stood up. "My lawyer's gonna reach out to yours to sort out the rest. I honestly wish you the best, but I'm not giving up my self-worth for someone who thought I was broken from the start." As I walked out, my phone pinged with a group text from the other guys. Our first official Single Life Forever Academy meeting was set to kick off in an hour at a rented office space. 28 men had signed up, some from the boot camp, others who'd caught wine through the grapevine. That day was the real launch of what would grow into a nationwide movement, not about hating on women, but about guys taking back their independence and pride in their relationships. The boot camp that was supposed to tame me ended up sparking a full-on rebellion. 3 months later, as my divorce was finalized, I got a surprise email from Dr. Avery herself. The husband boot camp had folded under a storm of backlash and legal heat from guys who'd been through it. She wanted to talk about my issues with the program. I shot her down with the same line I now give every guy who joins my movement: I don't waste time chatting with folks who start off thinking I need an overhaul. My energy's for people who come at me with respect. Last I heard, my ex-wife had packed up and moved to another state for a fresh start. I don't hold any grudges. Funny enough, her attempt to reshape me was the shove I needed to step into who I really am. Sometimes, when someone tries to run your life, the best comeback is just building a better one without them.